Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. This will be a prettier backdrop. I am Pastor Joe Fox. I have a theme for today. Y'all know how I tell you repeatedly, although I don't think I've hit on it for a while, come out of her, my people. Lest you partake of her sins and receive of her plagues. And with this coronavirus, that's just like more added impetus. The next time we see riots somewhere in this country, that's more added impetus. I did the t-shirt, Coup Hemp. I'll probably put that up for sale again sometime. And I encourage people to come out of her, my people, to go anywhere. Right, out away from the built up areas, right? That doesn't mean you have to live rural, off-grid neo-pioneer. Although I think it sets one up for doing very well if the whole system goes kaput. But there are other ways to do it. But when I say come out of her, my people, I'm not talking about being off-grid. Be clear on that. I'm talking about getting away from all the huge built up areas, the mega suburbias and all that. And those places are wide. There's many, from northern North Dakota, upstate New York, the parts of the Appalachians, of course the Redoubt, heck, probably in the desert too. They all have pluses and minuses. And I've said this before, and I'm living the example. I truly believe that the Father is calling His people to come to the Ozarks. Now, the Ozarks is big. It's not just where Shofar Mountain is. And every time I say that, I get questions, comments, emails, whatever, saying, what part of the Ozarks should I go to? What town? The Ozarks. I think the Father is calling His people to the Ozarks, roughly a diamond-shaped area, mostly in northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, little tiny sliver of Oklahoma, tiny, tiny sliver of Kansas. That's the Ozarks. Look it up on Wikipedia. You learn all about it. But I do believe He's calling His people to the Ozarks. I think the Ozarks is going to be a place of refuge for His people. Now, in the Ozarks, there are cities in the Ozarks. I don't think one should live in a city in the Ozarks. However, if you have to live in a city to practice your trade or whatever, doing it in the Ozarks would be better than somewhere else. But still, I think you should get away from people. What are the big cities in the Ozarks? Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, Missouri, and then there's a whole strip in Arkansas. Branson is another one in Missouri, and then the strip in Arkansas is like Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville. Third fastest growing region in the country. And then there's scooting over, as you're looking at it this way, Harrison or Harrisonville, I think it's Harrison, whatever, Arkansas. Those are the cities. I don't recommend living in the city. Now, you may have a job in the city, and I'm telling you, in the Ozarks, you drive 30 minutes outside of a city, you're in the boonies, right? So, you could ply your trade in the Ozarks and come out if you feel led. And if you don't, that's fine. And I'm not pushing anybody to come to the Ozarks. I'm just saying what it is. But I am pushing everybody to come out of her, my people, to get away from the built up areas where most people live. So that's one. Two, it's February. It's winter. Ooh. Some of y'all are in deep snow and it gets really cold, especially at night this time of year. And here, I showed you the mud, right? Let's go over there. I put my wellies on. I can walk in this stuff. Look at this. This is where I'm raising the yard up a couple inches, and it's too wet to work with right now. But I talked about this before. But I mean, come on, this is February, and there's water flowing through my garden and out. Mud. The winters in the Ozarks are mild. It's what I like about them. A cold day here, the temperature will only go up on a cold day to the low 30s. High. And those are rare. Most days in the winter, the temperature hits 40 during the day, and then it freezes at night, and it does that through the winter. So what's that allow? It allows more comfortable living. You know, it's less of a survival challenge, especially when the electricity doesn't work and the water doesn't flow and that kind of thing. It allows us to grow multiple crops. My wife's already got stuff in, and I'm going to plant some peas here directly, get my peas in February. And then they'll come up, we'll eat them, and then we'll plant something else in the same place. A lot of y'all have been asking about my garden. It's a mess right now, but most of y'all's garden is under snow, right? But that's where it's going to be, right back there. It'll be lovely. And so there's that, right? There's the livability of winter here. And then for those of you who are worried, and I totally am not, about, what do you call it? Grand solar minimum. Man, people just want to worry about stuff. It's going to get colder. Okay. Maybe it'll be like real winter here. What's it going to be like north? And I don't believe in grand solar minimum, but some of y'all do. And so I encourage you to think about that. You know, and there's plenty of water. I just showed you. There's lots of water in the Ozarks. Hello, girls. Chickens. Unlike the desert Southwest. You know, if you draw a band, a latitude of where the Ozarks are and go across the country to similar climate, you're into, you know, South Carolina, way too many people, wrong side of the country, wrong side of the Mississippi, sorry. And then you're going into desert, you know, this way as you're looking at it. So, yeah, the Ozarks, wintertime, nice. That thought's done. Related thought. But first, my son, who is a history teacher in a small town, he is the social studies teacher 7 through 12. And he doesn't work on Fridays. How cool is that? He took a class at the University of Kansas called, if I'm not mistaken, and I think I'm not, Country Folk and the Land. And I think out of all the courses he took in 6 years of college, I think that's one of the courses that had the most impact on him. It's certainly the one he talked about with us the most and has put things into our heads. And one of those things is the concept of rounds. Daily rounds, weekly rounds, monthly rounds, yearly rounds. And I've talked about it a little bit before. We have a lot of new people. You know, my daily rounds involve take out the papers and the trash, getting water, the heavy lifting kind of things that I do. My wife's daily rounds include, you know, cooking, washing dishes, weekly rounds for my wife, washing clothes, for me, preparing a sermon, things like that. The concept that really intrigued me, and I read it in another book that I brought back. I'm going to be reviewing it probably for the Berserkers. I think it's by Scott and Helen Nearing, The Simple Life or something. Anyway, the concept of yearly rounds. Doing things like, you know, every year in November we do this. Every year in February we prune our fruit trees and our grapevines. You know, here we just tapped a whole bunch of maple trees. So things like that. We do this every year at this time, and you kind of plot it out on your calendar, so you schedule it so there's room for it and you get it done. Was it 2 years ago? I think not this winter, but last winter. Not the past fall, autumn, but the one before that, and perhaps even the summer before that. I was saying on here a lot, and a lot of people were saying on the internet, winter is coming, right? Because of, what was that, Game of Thrones? And winter was coming. Wherever you live, except for Oz, you guys are backwards and upside down. Just take my concepts and apply them to yourself in Oz. I'm not going to redo the whole video. But Northern Hemisphere, wherever you live, spring is coming. A time of growth and rebirth. Passover. It's coming. I think it's coming earlier here in the Ozarks. And things I use to judge the coming of spring are dead skunks on the road, getting hit by cars because they're on the move, migrating, mating, something, I don't know. We have a little cave. It's not really a cave. It's where one rock fell and another rock fell and another rock fell, but it's big enough to get into. Where every year a pair of buzzards hatches a baby buzzard in the spring. Well, they're already in their nest right now. I see them every day. That seems early to me, but I haven't been writing this stuff down. I think I am going to start keeping a journal again, because keeping a journal, notice the buzzards building their nest. You can go back to last year and see when you saw that time marker, but it does feel to me like it's earlier this year. It's certainly warmer this year than it was last year. We didn't plant peas last year till March, so spring is coming. You should be getting ready for it. You should be thinking about that. It's right around the corner. So what are you going to do for spring coming? Gardens, planting gardens. This is the time everybody orders seeds and and they're going out and play with the garden. Some of y'all are going to comment. You won't now, probably because I'm saying it. My garden's still under 6 inches of snow. I get it. Well, then you're drawing diagrams or, whatever. But the other thing I wanted to kind of relate, because I feel pressure. Here I am living on the land where my day is my own, and yet I feel pressure, right? I'm a self-driven man. Winter's almost over. There are things we do here in the Ozarks. There are things we do, the Shofarians, in winter that we don't do at other times, and that is mostly having to do with being out in the woods and the tall grass and that kind of thing, because the ticks and chiggers here can be atrocious in the summertime. I mean, just like, oh my goodness. Now, we still go out in the woods and do things, but we like to do them a lot more this time of year, and it's not bad, right? I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt, a long sleeve t-shirt, and it's February. And so we cleared our 40-acre line. That we wanted to do that, so we weren't fighting all these, waist-high bushes that are going to give you chiggers from the waist down. We did that. We're going to work on the orchard today and get some things done in there. And but man, I want to get my soffits up. I told you that yesterday, I think, before the hornets come out. That's got to get done, right, before it gets hot. So what are you doing? Winter's almost over. What yearly rounds do you have that you do in winter that winter's almost over, so you got to have those rounds done, right? Well, what kinds of things do you want to get done before spring comes? Because for those of us, and it should be all of us who produce our own food to one degree or another, spring is a very busy time. I mean, we're working in the garden a lot to get it ready to go. It takes up big chunks of time during the day, or for those of you poor working sots that have regular jobs, big chunks of your weekend and your afternoons, right, when you come home. And so there's other things that in the wintertime, there's really no land. You're not mowing the lawn. You're not, having to do all this stuff, so it frees up time to do other things. that time is almost over for winter. So think about that. Whatever you wanted to get done this winter, you have a couple more weeks. I don't know about, what is it, Patunxie Phil or something like that, the groundhog. I don't know if we're having a short winter, or I don't know what he says, they say we're having. Don't really care. I think it's kind of stupid. I think we're having an early spring. And it'll be here before we know it. So think about that. Get yourself ready for spring and finish up what you got to do in winter. Think about daily, weekly, monthly, annual, yearly rounds. Think about scheduling your life that way. Yeah, it could be something as simple as we always go to the bug out property in the fall and do these things. Okay, that's an annual round. You know, a lot of people deer hunt every November or December, depending on where you live. You know, we go to deer camp, or we do this, or we harvest 4 deer or whatever. Okay, well then what do you have to do to get ready to harvest those 4 deer? That kind of thing. Some of you are just going, yeah, this is so basic, PJ. Others of you are like, oh, that's pretty cool. Actually scheduling your life, living deliberately. I have found that when we try to live deliberately, not just letting things happen and la, 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 you know, whatever we're going to do, but when you have a schedule for things, it helps you get more done. Of course, that can go to the extreme. You know, some people they're making a schedule. You know, the military does. Oh, yeah. We get together once a year and do our long-range calendar and stuff. That get-together is scheduled, right? But living more deliberately, not just floating through life. And here's an example. Y'all are getting ready to do taxes if you haven't already, right? Do your taxes. And almost everybody, when I used to hang out with a lot of people earning money, they would always say the same thing. I saw my gross, you know, what's it called? Gross something. I have a CPA. I no longer do my taxes. Your gross income that you got, gross annual income came in. I made this much money. And you're like, everybody's usually like, dang, that's a lot more than I thought I made. Where'd it go? Right? Because they didn't live deliberately. They didn't live financially deliberately. Most people. Dave Ramsey has great theories and concepts and stuff on living deliberately financially. He's on the radio in most places in the afternoon or morning. And so I encourage y'all, and this is me pointing at you with one finger and pointing back at myself with 3, to live more deliberately. Plan things out. Put them on the calendar. Put them in your journal. And then get them done. Spring is coming. I'll see you out there.